Vabbè, sono qua.
Our frequent speaker is Carlo Luca. Is Luca Bellardini, who is a PhD student in banking and finance at the University of Rome, Tor Vergata. And his paper deals with the last directive, European directive in financial instruments. The comment will be given by Professor Philippos. I will introduce you afterwards. Please, Luca, go ahead.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm turning 25 today, and it's the most beautiful way to celebrate a birthday with this My presentation is about the huge overhaul of the investment industry which is occurring since the start of this year. Probably much of people were particularly concerned about eco-friendly shoppers at the beginning of the year, as the new directive which was coming into force. Actually, there was a remarkable reshape in banking, finance, and investment industry. As I'm going to talk about this, which is far more important than eco-friendly shoppers, which were so popular at the beginning of the year. First of all, some short theoretical hints to what is behind a well-functioning market and how markets should be conceived in order to thrive and prosper. Of course, our seminar is devoted to Luca von Mises, and his human action is one of the pillars of how markets can have success and how individuals can shape their economic decisions and interact between themselves. Friedman in 1962, his Capitalism and Freedom, added that ideas cannot prosper in under centralized government. They always spring from individuals having, yes, of course, the opportunity to express them and transform them into action. There is, of course, a wonderful strand of evolution in markets, which draws up from the Enlightenment years, takes with itself the creation of the first exchanges, for instance, the Bretton Agreement in 1792, and arrives until the technological revolution, which is taking place in these days, and which of course, I appreciated a lot in the previous presentation by my colleague Martinelli, for instance, regarding the use of blockchain. I was wondering whether the regulator, once becoming acknowledged of the potential of blockchain, what would it be? What would it make? How would it act against this source of freedom in markets, which is completely reshaping even, of course, the investment industry? I will have the opportunity to talk about this when referring to algorithm trading and high-frequency trading. The main basis remains clearly the wealth of nations by Smith, and the encounter of self-interest is the famous statement: it is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, and other people who, of course, do their own self-interest, but of course, their regard for self-interest itself. Nozick in 1774 added that the free will of counterparties is the only legitimate thing behind underlying a contract, and a fair contract which has no relations with every possible distributive aim pursued by the legislator. Of course, unfortunately, we see the legislator pursue this distributive attitude even in the investment industry, as we are going to see. Recent trends are going the opposite direction as the one which we would wish for markets and the economy in general. Behavioral economics is casting doubt on the ability of individuals to shape wisely and correctly their investment decisions. Last year, the Nobel Prize was awarded to an eminent behavioral economist, Richard Taylor, and this strand is gaining strength, pardon the pun, but it's growing over time, and it's of course challenging traditional thought as regards classical economic rights. There is also this commonly accepted thought that capitalism is subject to a chronic crisis. It's both Marxist and Keynesian. Of course, there are differences, but it's something quite established, unfortunately, in mainstream economics nowadays. What is the result? It's a tighter regulatory intervention. We have seen it coming from the aftermath of the great financial crisis between 2007 and 2009, and it seems not to have a stop in these days. Even after Brexit, there are many calls, many advocates, many people who advocate a stricter regulatory intervention in many of the fields which are touched by MiFID II, this package of European rules. So once, of course, the UK will have regained its law-making sovereignty. Marginalism is, I think, well cared by each of us, but the old view by Wong, which is shaped by the unintentional consequences of intentional actions, is, yes, of course, at the basis of markets, but is nowadays no more so widely upheld, even in Brussels, as we're going to see. There is also the importance of speculation in financial markets. This word has gained a bad reputation over time, but speculation cannot be avoided in order to speculation intended as the search for profit in just even by doing arbitrage in prices or something similar. It is something inherent to the well functioning of markets, which otherwise, when constrained by tighter regulation, could not lead to the success that markets actually deliver even in a post-crisis environment. A brief overview of financial regulation in recent years. The predecessor of MiFID II, MiFID I, was passed in 2004, even if it became enforced only starting in 2008. So it lived very shortly de facto, because even just after the collapse of major American conglomerates such as Lehman Brothers, but also European crises such as the Northern Rock Bank, even prompted supervisors to rethink MiFID I, and in 2014 we have passed this new package. The baseline principle, which had been upheld before MiFID I, which draws up from the Napoleonic era tradition, the French Revolution tradition, was that the bargaining power of counterparties is able to shape the contract without this representing any hint of unfairness, and therefore the result, the actual outcome of contracts, even if in the financial field, should be respected and abided by whatever the starting conditions of the party. So there was no clear difference, no straightforward difference between financial contracts on the one hand and different contracts on the other. This has not been challenged by, for instance, Prospectus Directive, which is one of the most eminent predecessors of MiFID I, that was passed just the year before in 2003, and this principle has shaped the good part of European financial legislation over time. The USA have a completely different story. They were born by people who were financially in deficit, therefore there was no other way of regulating markets than taking the defense of borrowers against lenders, against capital owners. Therefore, even banking has been very strictly constrained, especially due to the antitrust value, which was characterized by the Sherman Act, and for even the President Roosevelt's famous statement against bankers before the Congress, or Justice Brandeis of the Supreme Court, a statement that transparency is the best of all disinfectant, and this kind of thought against huge market conglomerates, against trusts, and even, yes, constraining banks in a very little territorial area. It was enacted, the Dodd-Frank Act, in 2010, and nowadays it's almost completely repealed, but not fully. But we still, yes, can see the United States as the nation which, by means of the Glass-Steagall Act, reacted to the 1929 crisis by separating commercial banking from investment one and constraining the activities that bank can pursue. Volcker rule encompassed by the Dodd-Frank Act, which to poor prohibits banks from engaging in proprietary trading. Is only the last example of this barg against this thought against the proliferation of banking activities either through geography, through states, because they are statewide restrained still nowadays, with some even with some reforms, and also in terms of instruments they can trade and services they can provide. The end of Alchemy, the references to Melvin Keynes, former governor of the Bank of England book in 2016, which described how the great financial crisis came and how it developed and which were its consequences. MiFID I has been widely regarded as failing in creating that, in leveling the playing field between intermediaries. And of course, it is blamed for not having been able to stop, in accordance with the mainstream thought, not being able to stop the financial crisis from onsetting. The Larosière report in 2009 reshaped completely the architecture, the supervisory architecture of the European Union, which introduced the European financial system of financial supervision made of those authorities. There was a great concern for transparency from that Louis Brandeis statement in the USA to the awareness that something in financial markets, especially those exchanges such as dark pools and broker crossing networks, which were not transparent at all by definition, by the rules which they were constructed of, and this led to a huge regulatory intervention on this issue of privacy, we shall see in MiFID II and MiFID. It is true, of course, that regulation often comes after disasters. The state of the government in 2000 is clearly applicable to every kind of regulation, not only in the banking and financial field, but in general is a dramatic truth, which of course is also a defense against over-interventionism of regulators, which sometimes is going to act in advance of crisis being developing and breaking out. The main causes, but only just to give a hint, of course, there is huge discussion in the literature around the causes of the financial crisis, the great financial crisis. They are the same basically as the period which preceded it, namely the great moderation years from the end of the 80s to the first year of this millennium. Easy credit, all of us, I think, we call Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, that government-sponsored entities which provided collateral and even credit direct injection of liquidity onto families, onto households and small and medium enterprises to being able to enter residential mortgages. And this was, of course, the symbol of how easy credit had become. Interest rates were clearly at very low levels at the time. Liquidity was created much beyond what it should have been. But many assets that emerged at the time, which were spread in the system beyond afterwards, that they were actually not so liquid as they were thought to be. The policy was, of course, as I said before, with reference to the Federal Reserve, the main, the main character, we can say, of this attitude to easy credit and huge liquidity generation, which ultimately resulted in the crash in 2008. But we can say that MiFID I, even if it is commonly blamed for having produced all these, from not having stopped the crisis from propagating into Europe, actually it was not as bad as it has been depicted. For instance, it was much more market-friendly and liberal-oriented than MiFID II. We shall see the characteristics, but there is no doubt that it was a closer mirroring of the industry's expectations and of the liberal view behind the functioning of financial markets. The holistic view of financial markets as not separated from other ones was somehow still regarded, even if in just client categorization was is the element which witnesses how the European legislator had become aware that somehow markets, financial markets should be treated separately from different ones, while upholding consumerism even in financial markets, which is one of the most striking problems, issues which arise when thinking of the faults of MiFID II. There is also this elevator principle, which is the last hand of that liberal view, for it allowed, and still allowed, because it's still upheld in MiFID II, allows investors to be treated not in accordance with their inner characteristics, but even if they desire a different treatment from EU law, they can apply for for being recognized in a different category between professional clients, eligible counterparties, and of course retail clients, which is the most protected segment by the EU legislation. The package, the MiFID II and MiFID package, it has been divided by Professor Di Noia, Commissioner, in these three main pillars, which are product governance, product intervention, and the relationship between intermediary and clients. The difference between product governance and product intervention can be connected with the difference between an old-fashioned interventionist way, which was structural regulation, and a more modern version, which is of course the prudential one, but it entails whether, yes, a certain product can be marketed, distributed, and in case of intervention, whether national competent authorities as well as ESMA can intervene to how, for instance, the trading of a certain product in certain markets, and different markets where that product is traded should have to abide by that decision how the trading of the branded product. The most interesting thing is which is the approach underlying the relationships between intermediaries and clients. I have defined it as a cradle-to-grave one with reference to post-war Beveridge report on the welfare state in post-war or wartime England. It is not much different in the financial realm, especially retail clients are seen either as omniscient, and therefore they can it can be given a little piece of paper to become fully aware of the risks and the returns entailed by investment, or fully ignorant, and therefore they should be cared in the simplest financial decision that they may take. This is not, of course, a close mirroring of reality. It's not all black or white. There are many shades of gray, even in financial decisions. And this should have been regarded by the EU legislator, which is very which upholds a clear Manichaeism in this case. There are also some very unreasonable rules, such as the dogma that the best interest of the client should be pursued by whomever, either tied agents, even tied agents, which are people acting, providing investment advice on behalf of the investment firms of which they are, by which they are employed, directly employed. Even this category should abide by the prescription to act in the best interest of the client, which is something very silly because they are employed by a certain firm which is distributing a product manufactured by another firm or by itself, and when there is no coincidence between the two, between the manufacturer and the product, these investment protective rules are enacted in an even more profound and restraining way. There is also investment advice provided on an independent basis, which turns out not being so different from advice provided not on an independent basis, as far as both tied agents and independent advisors should abide by the same principle. There is a great difference actually, which directly affects business models as far as inducements are concerned. That is the rebates from the manufacturer, the originator of the product, which is advised on, to the advisor itself. The ban on inducements, which is charged upon independent advisors, is something which will lead them to completely rethink the business model, but will also affect the business model of different kinds of intermediaries. As far as that appropriateness and suitability tests which have to be performed when providing investment advice, which were of course present in laid down in MiFID I, but again laid down in MiFID II. There is that new binding obligation to identify a target market of end clients, which is something which is neither administering a suitability test, which is on the main characteristics of the investor, nor administering an appropriateness test, which is connecting the investor's characteristics with that of that peculiar investment at that time with that specific market conditions. The difference between the two has been said by Heliodorus, a famous Italian banker, as we can analyze our client and decide which best suits him or her. But what about he has we can identify the illness of our client and try to devise the best solution for him or her. But what about he has an allergy to that drug that we have designed for him or her? This is the reason why appropriateness should be performed, and the appropriateness test should be performed after the suitability one. but that identification of a target market of end clients is something very overarching, which disrupt completely even the most binding compliance obligations which investment firms should abide by, and forces them to perform a really thorough assessment of what they have before, which are the clients, which their products might, which performance might their products have in the future, despite an oracular pretense for each kind of market player. There are, of course, certain cases in which the appropriateness test, which is the control for the patient having allergies to the drug, may be waived. They are quite difficult to be met. For instance, the client should request the service on its own initiative. It should entail a non-complex product, and there are also other obligations which attain more to the investment firms in terms of absence of conflicts of interest and other prescriptions which are very important to abide by. Best execution has come back. It was one of the main novelties of MiFID I. It is stated in a less generic and more precise and more binding way than MiFID I. And it is closely connected with transparency, which is the full disclosure of all costs, charges, and similar burdens for the investor, which is something easily resulting in information overload, which, as we know, can be well regarded as the absence of any information. An investor charged with too much information could be unaware to discern what is really important to his investment decision, what is not, therefore make a bad investment decision. Economic rights, therefore, are clearly distorted, not only as a result of possibly misleading decisions taken by the investor, overwhelmed by tests, by documents to be filled, to be provided, but also from that neuron inducements, which is clearly disruptive of asset management, of the asset management field. Another particular burdensome provision for investment firms and investment banks in particular is the fact that research-related costs, when providing an investment service of any kind, should be disentangled, but physically, from other costs. So, for instance, research payment accounts should be set up in different jurisdictions to fully separate costs connected with research to costs which do not relate to research but to the provision of the service itself. And this, of course, should make many clients of investment banks to realize that the largest part of what they pay was due to actually research and not the provision of the service itself. So for investment banks is something which forces them to rethink completely their business model. We have seen talk about the tests to be administered by investment firms or the providers of investment services. They can be periodically reviewed. Of course, appropriateness is specific of that time, that instruments, that market conditions, but suitably can be reviewed over time. This would, yes, it's quite burdensome for the investor, for the provider of investment services who would decide to do so. There is also an issue of the certainty of law, because what about outstanding contracts once the investor's personal conditions, for instance, its owning properties, its having an income flow quite stable at the time, would become no more available or would change vis-a-vis the past. It should be reshaped the pool of the investment relations between the intermediary and the client, and of course the outstanding contract could be severely hit by such an update of the suitability test. So a huge question in terms of the suitability approach. What is all of this about? It's, as also my colleague Martin said before, a leviathan rising from the most obscure parts of the investment industry. It's a threat to both individual liberty and market freedom. Of course, market freedom stems from the respect for individual liberty, and we can see we have no such great expectations about a reversal of this trend, which dates back probably to post-crisis legislation. There is such a big regulator approach, like a big government, big society approach, which intends to constrain even what should be seen as the proof of a living, challenging, thriving investment industry, such as algorithmic trading and high-frequency trading. There are, as also previous presentations underlined, there are many ways to ensure the plain execution of transactions, even in a high-frequency or algorithmic environment, such as blockchain. Of course, the European legislator did not take this into account. It simply saw this realm a dangerous one, populated by nasty creatures to overcome. Of course, this is not the way in which a wise regulator should approach such a disruptive technological change which is occurring before our eyes. There are also other oversimplifications, especially in climate regulation, which should not be regarded as the best way to approach the market issues. We cannot think that retail clients are all the same, are monolithic block. We cannot think that all non-complex products are actually simpler than complex ones. For instance, certain stocks, which are generally seen as as a non-complex instrument, certain stocks could be, of course, far riskier and with a much more aggressive risk-return profile than certain derivatives written on very simple underlying assets. The European legislator is scared by derivatives themselves. It has already demonstrated it, showed it by regulation EMIR 2 years before MiFID II. The underlying hypothesis that should be upheld is that there is no intrinsic difference between financial contracts and different ones. All parties in a financial contract bear some risk. Of course, some bear more risk than others, but we should not allow any regulatory discernment between the universal, the financial universe and the non-financial one. There is such a protective esprit in the package, which is very different from MiFID I, which actually fails in ensuring, and going to conclude, going to ensure that investors are fully aware of the risk they face. They can properly assess what will be their financial results, and of course, most of them have the positive behavior. There is no financial culture spread by MiFID II. It's only a huge regulatory intervention. What we might expect if Brussels decided to take a U-turn, for instance, first thing, repeal the dogma of the best interest of the client. It is clearly disruptive of many businesses already established. Review the product governance intervention approach by looking at efficiency, not only transparency, which is clearly lacking efficiency in the package. And finally, avoid, such as the obligation of information is avoided in the transparency framework, is here Brussels avoid that investors be overwhelmed by papers to sign and by information which they would never intend as what they are in order to pursue a good and yield some returns financial event. I thank you for your kind attention.
The is given now by Professor Philippus, who is a senior and fellow at famous Institute of Economic Method, and he's professor of finance, public policy, and ethics at St. Mary's University. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. It's great to see young scholars working in this field, because the field of financial regulation has just become so complex and impenetrable. It's really only left open for analysis to two groups of people. One of those groups of people is regulators themselves, and the other group of people is very highly paid consultants who work for consulting businesses and large banks who are trying to influence the development of those regulations. And neither of those groups have an interest in having simpler or less regulation, regardless of whether they work for the regulator or in the private sector. If ever you become an academic, Luca, please don't get tempted by this, if ever you become, be tempted to become an academic, but not the next step. If ever you become an academic who understands this stuff, then of course you get sucked into either working as a consultant in your spare time for a regulator or a central bank, or working as a consultant for. So there's no group of people really who are critiquing regulation from a liberal point of view, and there's certainly no question that this regulation is wrestling liberty and winning. Just a couple of indications of the complexity of financial regulation. When MiFID II was enacted into UK regulation, I believe our financial regulator produced 0.7 million paragraphs of regulation which banks had to overnight implement when they were trading. Second example, if you go back to 1870, the UK passed the Insurance Companies Act, which effectively regulated insurance companies in the UK for 100 years before we took on EU directives, just before we joined the European Union. That act was 9 pages long. I was once browsing through, if that's the right word, the European Union Solvency II directive, which is 7 tens of thousands of words long, and I discovered that the list of typographical errors alone, which related to just one small section of the Solvency II regulation, was longer than Britain's 1870 Insurance Companies Act, which lasted 100 years. So this stuff is vicious, and it gives rise, I think, to forces in the world of political economy, which makes it extremely difficult to unravel. I'll just say a little bit more about that, and then I'll move on to say some complimentary remarks about the paper, and then suggest an additional framework of thinking, which is complementary with an E as opposed to complementary with an I. It's very true that the UK has, on the whole, until the mid-1980s, did not have a large amount of financial regulation. On the whole, there were small legislative acts passed which regulated particular parts or particular behaviours, but they were not especially onerous. They were adjudicated by courts, and there certainly wasn't the sprawling of thousands of pages of regulation that you get now. The US, on the whole, was always more heavily regulated financial markets, partly after the 1929 crash, but also in the early 20th century as well. So you're absolutely right in relation to that. And just another example of what's happened in the UK. So in the mid-1980s, we gave up essentially unregulated financial markets, and we created financial regulators which were creatures in one way or another of the state. One of those regulators in 2011 had managed to produce guidance, advice, discussion documents or consultations which totaled 4.3 million words. That's 5 times the length of the Bible. That's one financial regulator in 1 year alone. Andy Haldane, who is no friend of a deregulated financial environment, once pointed out that in 1980, there was one UK regulator for roughly every 11,000 people employed in the financial sector. By 2011, there was one regulator for every 300 people employed in the financial sector. And this is this period which our opponents would call this great period of neoliberalism, which led to the financial crisis and all the rest of that. Well, garbage really, there isn't another word for it. Andy Haldane didn't point out that if you project that trend forward until 2070, that is the ratio of financial regulators to people employed in finance. By 2070, you actually have more financial regulators than you do have people employed in the financial sector. And that excludes compliance officers working in banks themselves. Now, in many ways, MiFID and all these other directives came about because many things which were allowed and regulated in a particular way, which I'll talk about in a moment, in many Anglo-Saxon countries were prohibited in continental European countries. And the European Commission, actually with its liberal hat on, wanted to permit these things, but ensure that they were regulated. So it was, in a sense, a liberal move. It wanted to permit things which were previously banned. The Commission believed that was contrary to the ethos of the free movement of goods, services, and capital. So it wanted to, and then it wanted to bring in regulation. And then, in a move away from what was called mutual recognition to harmonisation, it wanted that regulation to be uniform across the European Union. And then you've got these huge directives, whereas previously different countries have regulated things in different ways. Now, that in a sense removed an element of regulatory competition. And I'm not entirely sure. I sense from your written paper that you might be in favour of this sort of level playing field type approach. But I would certainly counsel against that. The danger when you unify financial regulation is that if you get it wrong, it goes wrong everywhere at the same time. And Roberto Romano, who's a Yale law scholar, has made precisely that point. But also, you don't get different things tried in different places where you can learn from experience and so on. And I'll, again, come at the end of my remarks to how best to achieve that process of competition and learning. So the paper then points out the traditional justifications of regulation, information symmetries, investor protection, and so on, and that MiFID defines separate categories of investor who are deemed to be in need of different degrees of protection. So to use an analogy from another field, professional investors are deemed to be consenting adults, whereas retail investors are deemed to be like children, really, who are in need of high degrees of regulation because they can't consent themselves to whatever transaction it might be. And there is also a third group between these two, as you've noted, within MiFID. And another key feature of MiFID is that those who are transacting on behalf of clients have to demonstrate that they've acted in the best interests of clients. In other words, we move from, not sure whether the Latin's right here, but a caveat emptor to a caveat vendor situation. And this happened in the mid-1980s in the UK when we introduced state regulation. And hence the so-called mis-selling crises, when it was deemed that people in various parts of financial markets were selling unsuitable products to retail customers in financial markets, a problem which in earlier eras would have been described as misbuying rather than mis-selling. However, from a liberty point of view, I'm not sure that a caveat vendor contract is necessarily a bad thing as long as it's agreed between the parties. And it might be effective in areas where there are serious information symmetries. And I'm told that it was common, I don't have the historical knowledge to know, but I'm told that it was common in Roman slave markets, where it was required that the seller of a slave could disclose defects, and if then later defects arose, it was the seller of the slave, not the buyer of the slave, who was responsible. Now, if one is applying sort of neoclassical welfare economic principles to the analysis of regulation. There's nothing really wrong with this type of approach and the approach you take in your paper. And also there's nothing wrong, I broadly agree with your approach to reconsidering and revising the MiFID regulations from a neoclassical and efficiency welfare economics perspective. But if you're approaching this from a liberty perspective, or a Misesian perspective, or an Austrian perspective, I'd like to suggest another approach. So why do we need government regulation at all in these areas? Government regulation, I think, is inherently problematic. It's unlikely to achieve its desired objectives for reasons we all know about. In the same way that the central planner can't know in advance how many toilet rolls to produce, we can't know in advance what is the welfare maximum form of regulation. Will it impose too many costs? Will it not protect the consumer sufficiently? Will it not protect the consumer the right way? And so on. Will the implications for reducing competition cause more costs than the benefits which might arise from protecting consumers? There's no effective way of communicating the costs and benefits of government regulation of financial markets through markets, and therefore there's no guarantee, indeed there's no possibility, not just a guarantee, that you'll actually get the right outcome. And in addition, you also get the problem of regulatory capture by the types of groups I mentioned right at the beginning. So from a liberty point of view, and also I'd argue from an economic efficiency point of view, I would suggest that you consider how regulatory institutions develop organically within markets through a process of competition. Now, those institutions can be quite subtle, but they can also can be quite visible, such as exchanges and other related institutions. So in the United Kingdom, in Holland, in the United States, these kinds of regulatory institutions developed in financial markets, not only were they not the creation of the state, but very often they enforced contracts which couldn't be enforced through state courts. And not only that, you use a quote from, no, actually, funny enough, it's previously we used a quote from Voltaire, and very often, I'm looking at a UK Royal Commission looking at stock exchanges in the late 19th century, mentioned that they actually very often provided recourse better than the recourse you could get in the courts of law. So stock exchanges first developed in coffee shops, and as a group of 150 brokers in Jonathan's coffee shop eventually produced a formalized exchange, and eventually also with formalized rules. Why does it develop those rules? Well, because the safer the trading environment, the more likely it is that investors are going to use the exchange, and it also, if you have rules for companies which are quoting their shares or other securities on the exchange, it will potentially lower the cost of capital for those companies. So you can get competition. There are costs and benefits of regulation. Those costs and benefits will come through signals such as the cost of capital to raising, the cost to companies of raising capital through an exchange. There are many examples still around today. Most of them are hamstrung by government regulation, but there is, for example, the alternative investment market, which trades shares which, because of the size of the companies, are often exempt from, for example, the prospectus directive, and also the Baltic Exchange, ISTA, the International Financial Derivatives Association, which deals on the whole with wholesale clients, therefore to some extent exempt from government regulation, and it has its own dispute resolution procedures and so on, so that those involved in disputes, those involved in trading derivatives, especially of the counter, don't have to make recourse through government courts. And none of those organisations, I should say, failed during the financial crisis. The credit ISTA perhaps gets a bad reputation because of the problems in the credit derivatives swaps market, but there was no failure to settle by ISTA. The only failures in the credit derivative swaps market related to problems by companies which were regulated and then failing and then going back because of their exposure. So I should draw this to a close, but we should think of regulatory services, I think, as part of the package of services which is produced by the market process through the process of competition. And that process of competition is necessary to discover the best forms of regulation. And different regulatory institutions will compete on the basis of the efficacy of their rulemaking environments. If they're too slack, the cost of capital will be higher. If they're too tight, then we have all the cost of and everything else. So instead of a market failure model, which I think sort of comes out of a Chicago neoclassical approach, I think we should think of a market process model and competition not just applying to goods, production of goods and services, but also the creation of the regulatory environments on which securities and other investments can be traded. A good starting point to read more about this, some IEA stuff, but Ed Stringham's book on private governance, which was published in 2015, I think is a brilliant book which traces the history of these institutions, but also the modern day context.
Thank you very much, Professor Booth. I beg your pardon, as I was given the whole program. We are a little bit late, so I will shorten the time for questions to 10 minutes, just 10 minutes. Please, short questions and short answers. You have the, yeah.